blood trickled down Noah Washington's face as security guards pinned him to the marble floor of Pierce Manor. Above him, billionaire Richard Pierce screamed accusations of kidnapping his son Eli. The disabled boy's desperate cries echoed, "Stop, he saved my life." Nobody listened. Before we dive into this incredible story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're ready to witness how one brave act during a devastating storm changed two families forever and exposed the ugly truth behind a city's racial divide. Noah Washington stared at the rain pounding against the classroom window, his mind calculating how much worse the flooding would be in Westside Heights by the time school ended. At 16, Noah carried responsibilities far beyond his years, his brilliant mind constantly solving problems that shouldn't have been his to solve. Westside High School was falling apart around him. Ceiling tiles stained from leaks, outdated textbooks, held together with tape and computer lab computers that took 10 minutes just to start up. Yet, despite these challenges, Noah maintained a perfect 4 gigapascals and ranked first in his class. He glanced down at the state exam results paper on his desk, the red 98% circled with a note from Principal Hoffman. "See me after class." Noah already knew what that conversation would entail, the same accusation of cheating that followed every achievement he earned. It was the highest score in Westside High history, and Principal Hoffman couldn't believe a black kid from the poorest neighborhood could achieve it legitimately. The bell rang and Noah gathered his worn backpack, mentally calculating how he could make it to his convenience store job at Milo's Market and still be home in time to care for his 10-year-old sister Lily while their mother, Tanya, worked her second shift at Riverdale Memorial Hospital. As he walked toward the principal's office, his only ally at Westside High, Mrs. Bennett, intercepted him in the hallway. "Noah, I heard about your test score. Phenomenal work." The only black teacher in the school smiled proudly. "I've already spoken to Principal Hoffman about your consistent academic performance. Stand your ground." Noah nodded gratefully, drawing strength from her support as he continued down the hallway, passing the trophy case filled with faded photographs and dusty awards from decades ago, before the district lines were redrawn to segregate Westside Heights from the wealthy neighborhoods across the Crescent River. 3 miles away in the exclusive Hillcrest Estates neighborhood, 12-year-old Eli Pierce sat in his specialized wheelchair in the vast sunroom of Pierce Manor, photographing raindrops, creating patterns on the perfectly manicured gardens visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. Despite being born with muscular dystrophy that progressively weakened his muscles, Eli's passion for photography had only grown stronger, his expensive camera equipment adapted with special controls to accommodate his limited dexterity. Eli's father, Richard Pierce, CEO and founder of Pierce Technologies with a net worth exceeding $20 billion, had spared no expense for technological accommodations. From the custom motorized wheelchair to the smart home system that allowed Eli to control his environment with voice commands. What Richard Pierce couldn't provide, despite his billions, was time and understanding. Currently away on business in Europe, Richard communicated with his son primarily through his executive assistant scheduling brief video calls between board meetings. The only other resident of Pierce Manor, besides a rotating staff of housekeepers, nurses, and security personnel, was Eli's 18-year-old sister Emma, currently away at an elite boarding school in Switzerland. While Noah crossed the potholed streets of Westside Heights on his way to work, skirting around areas where storm drains were already overflowing, Eli watched the same storm from behind triple-paned glass, fascinated by its power, but completely insulated from its effects. Between these two worlds ran the Crescent River, naturally dividing the city of Riverdale, reinforced by a 12-foot security wall built by the Hillcrest Estates Homeowners Association after a series of what they called concerning incidents involving Westside residents on their pristine streets. The only connection between the two sides was Crescent Bridge, heavily monitored by security cameras and frequently patrolled by Riverdale police officers who rarely bothered to hide their differential treatment of residents based on which side of the bridge they lived. As evening approached, weather alerts intensified. The National Weather Service upgraded the storm warning to a flash flood emergency with particular concern for low-lying areas, specifically Westside Heights, which had been built on former marshland, now prone to devastating flooding, due to outdated drainage infrastructure that the City Council perpetually postponed upgrading. On the newscast playing on the small television in Milo's Market, where Noah stocked shelves, meteorologists pointed to the storm's unexpected intensity, while city officials announced evacuation plans that prioritized downtown areas and wealthy neighborhoods, mentioning Westside Heights only as an afterthought, with vague instructions to seek higher ground if necessary. Noah texted his mother, "Storm getting worse. Coming home early to prepare apartment." He knew from experience that higher ground was a luxury not easily accessible to West Side residents, and that the city's emergency services would be concentrated elsewhere when the waters began to rise. The rain became a furious assault as Noah hurried home, wind-whipping water horizontally into his face, despite the hood of his jacket pulled tight. Thunder cracked overhead like explosive detonations, each flash of lightning illuminating streets already transformed into shallow rivers. Westside Heights was built in a basin, and as Noah had predicted, the outdated drainage systems were already overwhelmed, pushing dirty water back through storm drains rather than carrying it away. He passed Mrs. Jenkins, an elderly neighbor, struggling to place sandbags at her door, and immediately stopped to help. "Noah, thank the Lord," she gasped, her arthritis-riddled hands trembling as she surrendered the heavy bag. "They're saying it'll be worse than the flood of 2012. Noah efficiently stacked sandbags while helping Mrs. Jenkins gather essential medications and documents into a waterproof bag. "You should head to the community center now, Mrs. Jenkins. I can walk you there before it gets worse." After ensuring Mrs. Jenkins was safely delivered to the Westside Community Center, already crowded with residents seeking refuge, Noah continued toward his apartment building, stopping to help 3 more neighbors along the way. His phone vibrated with an incoming call from his mother. "Noah, the hospital's activating emergency protocols. They're asking staff to stay for the duration of the storm. The roads are already impassable." The worry in Tanya Washington's voice was evident despite her attempt to sound calm. "How's Lily?" Noah glanced at the darkening sky. "I'm almost home now. Don't worry about us, Mom. We've been through storms before." What he didn't tell her was that the water was already ankle-deep on their street, rising faster than he'd ever seen. When Noah finally reached their third-floor apartment, he found Lily huddled under a blanket on the couch, her face unnaturally flushed. "Noah," she whimpered as he rushed to her side, placing a hand on her forehead. The heat radiating from her skin sent alarm through his body. "How long have you been feeling sick?" he asked already, moving to find the children's fever reducer they kept in the bathroom cabinet. "Since lunch at school," Lily admitted, "but it got really bad after you texted." Noah gave her the medication, checking the dosage twice, then filled a glass with water and urged her to drink. Outside, the storm's fury, intensified wind howling between buildings like a living creature. The lights flickered once, twice, then stabilized. Noah checked their emergency supplies: flashlights, batteries, non-perishable food, bottled water, all prepared well in advance because experience had taught the Washingtons that Westside Heights would always be last on the list for emergency assistance. An hour later, Lily's fever hadn't decreased. If anything, she seemed worse, her breathing rapid, and her small body alternating between chills and sweating. Noah checked their medicine cabinet again. The bottle of fever reducer was nearly empty, with only 1 dose remaining. He tried calling his mother, but couldn't get through the cell networks, overwhelmed or damaged. Looking out the window, Noah saw the water had risen to car windows in the street below. The emergency broadcast on their battery-powered radio announced that all of Westside Heights was now under mandatory evacuation information that came hours too late for many residents without vehicles or places to go. Noah made a decision. He had to get more medication for Lily. The nearest pharmacy was Riverdale Drugs, located downtown just across the Crescent Bridge. "Lily, I need to go get more medicine. You're going to stay here where it's safe and dry. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Mom." He helped her to their mother's bedroom, setting her up with water crackers and the emergency phone. "If it gets worse, call 911, but they might be very busy." Lily nodded bravely, though fear shone in her eyes. "Be careful, Noah. The water's really high." Noah donned his rain jacket, placed his wallet, phone, and keys in a waterproof bag, and headed out into the storm. The stairwell of their building was dark, emergency lights casting weak yellow pools, insufficient to fully illuminate the way. Outside, the situation was worse than it had appeared from the window. The street had become a churning river of debris-filled water reaching above Noah's knees in places. He waded, carefully aware of the hidden dangers beneath the surface: open manholes, sharp objects, electrical hazards from downed lines. It took Noah nearly an hour to reach the approach to Crescent Bridge, the most direct route to downtown. The bridge itself remained above the floodwaters, but Police Officer Daniels stood at the checkpoint, selectively allowing people to cross. Noah watched as a white couple from downtown who had been visiting friends in Westside and been caught by the storm were waved through without question. When Noah approached, Officer Daniels held up his hand. "Where do you think you're going?" His tone made the question an accusation. "My sister's sick. I need to get to the pharmacy for medication," Noah explained, struggling to keep his voice even. "She has a high fever that won't come down." Officer Daniels looked Noah up and down, taking in his soaked clothes and Westside High hoodie. "Pharmacy's probably closed. Besides, emergency services are stretched thin. We can't have people from your neighborhood looting stores downtown." Noah felt familiar anger rise, but kept it contained. "I'm not looking to loot anything. My sister needs medicine. I have money to pay." After a tense moment, Officer Daniels reluctantly stepped aside. "Be quick about it, and I better not hear about any trouble." Noah hurried across the bridge, the contrast between the two sides of Riverdale immediately apparent. Downtown had functioning streetlights, emergency personnel, directing traffic, and businesses with sandbags and emergency generators. The floodwaters here were being actively pumped away from important buildings. Noah made his way to Riverdale Drug's, heart sinking when he saw the darkened windows. A sign had been hastily taped to the door, closed due to emergency. Through the glass, Noah could see the pharmacist inside securing medications in a safe. He knocked urgently. The pharmacist glanced up, made eye contact with Noah, then deliberately turned away, continuing his task. Noah knocked again, more desperately. Finally, the pharmacist came to the door but didn't open it. "We're closed," he said through the glass. "Please, my sister is really sick. She's 10 and her fever won't go down. I just need children's fever reducer," Noah pleaded. The pharmacist hesitated, then shook his head. "Sorry, insurance regulations. Can't open during emergency conditions." "Try the hospital." He turned away, ignoring Noah's continued knocking. Noah stood in the rain, desperation growing. The hospital was on the far side of downtown. At least another 45 minutes in these conditions, and likely overwhelmed with emergency cases. He remembered the 24-hour convenience store in Crescent Park, which bordered Hillcrest Estates. It was a longer route, but might be his only option. Retracing his steps across the bridge, Noah ignored Officer Daniels' suspicious glare and headed north along the river toward Crescent Park. The route would take him close to the wall separating Westside from Hillcrest Estates, but the park itself was technically public property, accessible to all Riverdale residents. As Noah trudged through increasingly treacherous conditions, the storm unleashed a new wave of fury. The wind drove the rain with such force it felt like needles against his skin. Visibility dropped to mere feet, and the already dark evening became almost pitch black between lightning flashes. Crescent Park loomed ahead, its carefully maintained pathways now submerged under muddy water flowing from the saturated grounds of Hillcrest Estates above. Noah pushed forward through the flooded park pathways, the water now reaching his thighs in the lowest sections. Lightning split the sky, momentarily illuminating the landscape in harsh white light, and in that instant, Noah spotted something that made him stop. Approximately 50 yards away, partially hidden by decorative shrubbery, sat what appeared to be a specialized wheelchair, its occupant desperately trying to maneuver in rapidly rising muddy water. Noah hesitated only a second before changing direction, wading through the churning water toward the stranded figure. As he drew closer, he recognized the sleek, technologically advanced wheelchair as something far beyond what any Westside resident could afford. Its occupant was a young white boy, perhaps 10 or 11 years old, his face pale with fear and cold. "Hey, do you need help?" Noah called out over the howling wind. The boy's head snapped up relief and wariness, battling in his expression. "Yes, please. My chair's stuck and won't respond to controls." Noah reached the boy and immediately assessed the situation. The wheelchair had sunk several inches into the saturated ground, its motorized wheels spinning uselessly in the mud. The boy's thin body shivered violently, his clothes soaked through. "I'm Noah." "What's your name?" Noah asked, already examining the chair for a way to free it. "Eli." "Eli Pierce," the boy responded through chattering teeth. Noah froze momentarily at the surname. Everyone in Riverdale knew the Pierce name, Richard Pierce, tech billionaire owner of Pierce Technologies, and one of the primary reasons Westside Heights remained trapped in poverty while Hillcrest Estates thrived. Pushing aside his initial reaction, Noah refocused on the immediate problem. "How long have you been out here?" "Eli, hours." Eli admitted, his voice small. "I came to photograph the storm. The weather alert said we had until evening before it got dangerous. Then my chair malfunctioned, and I dropped my communication device in the water." Noah noticed the expensive camera protected in a waterproof case hanging from the chair. "Didn't anyone see you out here? Where's your family?" "Dad's in Europe on business. The household staff think I'm in my room. I snuck out through the garden access." Eli's teeth chattered more violently. "2 security guards passed by earlier, but they didn't hear me calling. I think they assumed I was with someone since I was in the park." Noah recognized the symptoms of hypothermia beginning to set in. The boy's lips had taken on a bluish tinge, and his shivering had intensified. Noah tried multiple approaches to free the wheelchair, but the combination of mud water and the chair's weight made it impossible. "It's no use. The chair's stuck solid," Noah concluded. "I need to get you somewhere warm and dry." Eli looked alarmed. "But my chair, it costs more than most cars." "We'll have to leave it for now," Noah said firmly. "Your safety is more important." Making a quick decision, Noah carefully lifted Eli from the chair. The boy was surprisingly light, his muscles atrophied from his condition. "I'm going to carry you to somewhere safe." "Okay. My apartment is in Westside Heights. It's closer than going uphill to Hillcrest in these conditions." Eli nodded weakly, no longer in a position to object. Noah secured the boy against his chest, making sure his head was protected from the rain as much as possible. "My camera," Eli whispered. "Please." Noah managed to detach the camera bag and sling it over his shoulder. As he did, he noticed something on the camera's display, a series of photographs showing what looked like industrial discharge pipes emptying directly into the Crescent River, with Pierce Technologies logos clearly visible. Noah had heard rumors that the company was responsible for contaminating the river and contributing to the flooding problems in Westside, but had never seen proof. Before he could look closer, Eli's body shuddered violently against him. The boy needed warmth and medical attention immediately. Noah tucked the camera away and began the difficult journey back toward Westside Heights, carrying precious cargo in more ways than one. Have you ever been faced with a difficult decision that tested your moral character? Would you have stopped to help someone from the other side, knowing the risks? Comment number 1, if you believe Noah made the right choice despite the danger, or number 2, if you think he should have called for professional help instead. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see what happens next in this story of courage across social divides. The real question is, will Noah's compassionate act be rewarded, or will the stark realities of racial prejudice turn his heroism into a crime in the eyes of the powerful Pierce family? Let's continue. The journey back to Westside Heights was a brutal test of Noah's strength and determination. The storm had intensified to near-hurricane-force wind-driven rain, stinging his face and obscuring visibility to mere feet in front of him. Eli's body trembled continuously against Noah's chest, the boy's breathing becoming increasingly labored as hypothermia tightened its grip. "Stay with me," Noah encouraged, adjusting his hold to keep the boy's head above the rising water. "Just a little farther." The normal 15-minute walk had already stretched to nearly an hour, as Noah carefully navigated the treacherous flood conditions, constantly scanning for submerged hazards and choosing the shallowest path possible. Halfway across the park, Noah spotted movement ahead, shadowy figures wading through the floodwaters, flashlight beams dancing erratically. His instincts screamed danger. In disaster situations, desperation sometimes drove people to extremes. Noah quickly ducked behind a large oak tree holding Eli close as he observed the group, 3 men carrying bags of looted electronics from a broken storefront, taking advantage of the emergency to raid businesses abandoned in the prompt. Evacuation. "What's happening?" Eli whispered weakly. "We need to take a detour," Noah murmured, waiting until the looters moved out of sight before continuing in a wide arc around their position. The additional distance was costly, both in time and in Eli's deteriorating condition. As they finally reached the outskirts of Westside Heights, Eli suddenly stiffened in Noah's arms, his body seizing violently. Noah carefully lowered them both to a relatively shallow section of floodwaters, supporting Eli's head above the surface as the seizure ran its course. Noah's mind raced through everything he'd read about first aid and emergency medicine in the dozens of medical textbooks he'd borrowed from the public library, preparing for his dream of becoming a doctor. Temperature drop. Body trying to generate heat, he muttered to himself, removing his own jacket and wrapping it around Eli once the seizure subsided. The boy's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. "Dad," he murmured. "It's Noah, Eli. I'm getting you to safety. Just stay with me." Noah lifted the boy again and pushed forward with renewed urgency. When they finally reached Noah's apartment building, he was confronted with a new challenge. The entire first floor was flooded with 3 feet of murky water. The building's emergency lights cast weak, ghostly illuminations across the submerged lobby. "Noah, that you, man?" a voice called out. Noah turned to see his friend Tyrell Johnson wading toward him, using a piece of plywood as a makeshift paddleboard. "Tyrell, thank God. I need to get upstairs. My sister's sick, and now this boy needs help too." Tyrell's eyes widened as he took in the pale, trembling form of Eli Pierce in Noah's arms. Questions later, Noah cut him off. "Can you help us get through this water to the stairs?" With Tyrell's assistance, Noah managed to navigate the flooded lobby and reach the stairwell. By the time they climbed to the 3rd floor, Noah's legs were burning with exhaustion, but the urgency of the situation drove him forward. At the apartment door, Noah's neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, was just leaving their unit. "Noah, thank heavens. Your sister's fever spiked, and I've been caring for her." "Who's this?" she asked, noticing Eli. "Someone who needs help," Noah replied simply. "He's hypothermic and had a seizure." Mrs. Rodriguez, a retired nurse with 30 years of experience at Riverdale Memorial, immediately shifted into professional mode. "Bring him in. I'll get towels and blankets." Inside the apartment, Lily lay on the couch, her face flushed with fever. She raised her head weakly as Noah entered carrying Eli. "Noah, who's that? This is Eli." "He was stuck in the storm," Noah explained, laying Eli gently on their mother's bed, as Mrs. Rodriguez directed. "Dry clothes first, then warming blankets, Mrs." Rodriguez instructed, efficiently stripping Eli's soaked garments and replacing them with Noah's smallest t-shirt and sweatpants, which still engulfed the boy's thin frame. "His core temperature is dangerously low. We need to raise it gradually." While Mrs. Rodriguez tended to Eli, Noah checked on Lily, whose fever remained alarmingly high. "Did you take the last dose of medicine?" Lily nodded weakly. "It didn't help much." Noah turned on the battery-powered radio, hoping for updates on emergency services. Instead, he heard a news bulletin that made his blood freeze. Billionaire tech mogul Richard Pierce has cut short his European business trip and is returning to Riverdale following reports that his son, 12-year-old Eli Pierce, is missing from the family estate. Pierce is offering a reward of $1 million for information leading to his son's safe return. Security footage shows a young black male removing Eli from his wheelchair in Crescent Park. Police are treating this as a kidnapping. The suspect is described as African-American male, approximately 16 to 18 years old. The broadcast continued, but Noah had stopped listening, his mind racing with the implications. The security cameras had captured him taking Eli from the wheelchair, but not the circumstances or his efforts to help. To the authorities, it would look exactly like a kidnapping. Kidnapping Eli's voice, weak but clear, came from the bedroom doorway. The boy stood unsteadily, leaning heavily against the frame, Mrs. Rodriguez hovering protectively nearby. "That's ridiculous. You saved me." Noah tried the landline phone. Then his cell phone, desperate to contact Pierce Manor and explain the situation, but both were dead. The landline from the storm damage and his cell from battery depletion and lack of signal. The power in the building flickered once more, then died completely, plunging the apartment into darkness until Noah activated their emergency lanterns. Mrs. Rodriguez moved between the two children, checking temperatures and vital signs. "Eli's improving, but we need to keep him warm. Lily's fever is 103.8, too high. She needs proper medication and possibly intravenous fluids." Outside, they could hear sirens in the distance, but experience told them emergency services would be concentrated in the wealthy neighborhoods first. Westside Heights would be last on the list if help came at all. On the radio, the news had moved on to a live statement from Richard Pierce himself. "My son requires specialized medical care. Each hour without his medication puts him at risk. To whoever has taken him, he's just an innocent child. I'm offering a reward of $1 million, no questions asked for his safe return." The broadcast cut to Police Chief Wilson. "We have identified the suspect from security footage and are initiating a citywide manhunt. We consider him dangerous and potentially armed. All available officers have been diverted to this priority case." Noah exchanged glances with Mrs. Rodriguez, the gravity of the situation settling heavily between them. He was now the subject of a manhunt labeled dangerous and a kidnapper, while two sick children depended on him for care in the middle of a historic flood. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the Washington apartment, an even more dangerous storm was brewing, one made of prejudice, misunderstanding, and the vast divide between two worlds that existed side by side yet remained worlds apart. Dawn broke over Riverdale with deceptive calm, the eye of the storm creating a temporary lull in the relentless rain. Noah stood at the window of their apartment, watching as the first helicopter circled over Westside Heights, its searchlights sweeping across flooded streets. The radio crackled with continuous updates about the manhunt. Police Chief Wilson has mobilized all available officers to search for kidnapping suspect Noah Washington, age 16. The suspect is described as a black male, 6 feet tall, medium build, last seen wearing a blue Westside High School hoodie. He is believed to be holding Eli Pierce, son of tech billionaire Richard Pierce, somewhere in the Westside Heights area. Chief Wilson warns that Washington should be considered dangerous. Citizens are advised to report any sightings, but not to approach. The news anchor's voice shifted to a more sensationalistic tone. Sources close to the investigation have released a photo of the suspect, which we're showing now. Washington has one prior incident on his school record for fighting, though his teachers report he's academically gifted. Pierce Technologies has supplemented the police effort with private security contractors who are currently conducting door-to-door searches in Westside Heights. Noah moved away from the window, his stomach churning with anxiety. The prior incident they mentioned had been him defending a younger student from bullies in 7th grade, something that would have been praised as heroism had it occurred in Hillcrest Academy instead of Westside High. In the bedroom, Eli was finally sleeping peacefully. His color improved after Mrs. Rodriguez's careful warming techniques and the dry clothing. Lily's condition, however, had worsened overnight. Her fever hovered stubbornly at 104 degrees despite cool compresses and the last of their fever medication. Noah checked their emergency supplies, calculating how long they could last. The battery radio continued. "We're going live to Richard Pierce, who has just arrived back in Riverdale by private helicopter." Pierce's voice came through tight with controlled emotion. "I've established a command center at Pierce Technologies headquarters to coordinate the search for my son. I'm increasing the reward to $2 million for information leading to Eli's safe return. To the criminal who took my son, he requires specialized medication and care. Without it, his condition could rapidly deteriorate." I'm speaking directly to the residents of Westside Heights now. If you're harboring this thug or have information about my son's whereabouts coming forward, now will be rewarded. Remaining silent makes you complicit. The word thug hit Noah like a physical blow. Without knowing anything about him, his academic achievements, his care for his family, his dream of becoming a doctor, Pierce had reduced him to a stereotype based solely on his race and neighborhood. At Riverdale Memorial Hospital, Tanya Washington stared in horror at the television in the staff break room, her son's yearbook photo displayed beside the word kidnapper in bold red letters. "That's my son," she whispered, causing her colleagues to turn toward her in shock. "This is wrong. Noah wouldn't kidnap anyone." She grabbed her phone with trembling hands, but the emergency network was still overwhelmed, calls to her home going straight to an automated message. A white nurse edged away from Tanya, whispering to another staff member while glancing back with suspicion. Security guards suddenly seemed to be paying particular attention to her movements. Only one person approached directly, Sandra Torres, the only Latina detective in Riverdale's police force who happened to be at the hospital interviewing flood victims. "Mrs. Washington, I'd like to speak with you about your son." Instead of immediately handcuffing her or treating her with suspicion, Detective Torres led Tanya to a quiet corridor. "I'm handling this investigation, and something doesn't add up. Your son has no record of violence or criminal behavior. He's top of his class with medical school aspirations. This doesn't fit the profile of someone who would kidnap a disabled child for ransom." Tanya fought back tears. "Noah would never hurt anyone. He takes care of his sister while I work double shifts. He volunteers at the community center teaching younger kids. If he's with that Pierce boy, there's a good reason." Detective Torres nodded thoughtfully. "The security footage only shows him lifting the boy from the wheelchair, not what happened before or after. I need to investigate this properly before this manhunt gets out of hand." Back in Westside Heights, the power outage had reached its 24th hour. The medical equipment that Mrs. Rodriguez had improvised to monitor both children's vital signs was running on backup batteries that wouldn't last much longer. "We need supplies," Mrs. Rodriguez stated, checking Lily's temperature again. "More fever medication at minimum and preferably proper antibiotics. I think she has pneumonia developing." Noah paced the small living room, weighing impossible options. Venturing outside meant risking capture by the police or Pierce's private security force, but staying meant watching Lily's condition deteriorate further. "I'll go," he finally decided. "The convenience store on Maple Street might still have medicine, and I know the owner." Mrs. Rodriguez looked concerned but nodded. "Be careful. They're looking for a boy in a blue hoodie, so change your appearance as much as possible." Noah found his father's old work jacket and a baseball cap in the back of the closet. Before leaving, he checked on Eli, who was awake and alert for the first time since the rescue. "You're going out there?" Eli asked, his voice stronger than before. "My sister needs medicine," Noah explained, adjusting the cap lower over his eyes. "The police think I kidnapped you." Eli struggled to sit up. "That's crazy. You saved my life. We need to tell my dad what really happened." "Right now, no one's going to listen to either of us," Noah replied grimly. "Rest and get your strength back. Mrs. Rodriguez will look after you and Lily." As Noah prepared to leave, Lily called weakly from the couch. "Noah, I'm scared." He knelt beside his sister, forcing confidence into his voice. "Everything's going to be okay, Lily Pad. I'm just going for medicine then, coming straight back." The floodwaters had receded slightly, now only ankle-deep in the streets, but the devastation was evident everywhere. Overturned cars, debris piled against buildings and water lines, marking the flood's peak halfway up. First-floor windows. Noah moved cautiously, using alleyways and staying in shadows, hyper-aware of the police vehicles and private security SUVs patrolling nearby. He overheard fragments of conversations as residents gathered in small groups. "They're searching every building in Westside, offering $2 million. Wouldn't trust the police not to shoot first and ask questions later." At the apartment, Eli had convinced Mrs. Rodriguez to help him move to the couch beside Lily. Despite their circumstances, the two children had formed an immediate connection. "You have a cool room," Eli commented, looking around at Lily's half of the bedroom she shared with Noah, decorated with solar system models and science posters. "You like space. I want to be an astronaut," Lily replied, her voice weak but animated. "Noah got me these posters from the Science Museum when he volunteered there last summer." Eli smiled. "That's awesome. Everyone always decides what I should like because of my disability. Dad bought me all these sports memorabilia, even though I keep telling him I prefer photography and technology. Adults don't listen sometimes." Lily agreed, then lowered her voice conspiratorially. "I found Noah's college applications. He's applied for pre-med scholarships but hasn't told Mom yet because he doesn't want her to worry about money." Eli glanced toward Mrs. Rodriguez, who was preparing cool compresses in the kitchen. "Noah seems really smart. At my school, they'd give him a full scholarship just for his test scores. Not for kids from Westside," Lily said matter-of-factly. Noah's teacher, Mrs. Bennett, says the system is designed to keep us out. While the children bonded, Eli noticed his camera bag on the table. "My camera. Can you reach it for me?" When Lily managed to hand him the camera, Eli navigated through the photos he'd taken before becoming stranded. "Look at these," he said, showing Lily images of industrial pipes emptying suspicious-looking fluid into the river. "I was documenting this when my wheelchair got stuck. These pipes come from my dad's company. I think they're dumping chemicals illegally." Lily's eyes widened. "That's why our neighborhood floods so badly." Noah said the pollution changed the river flow. Eli nodded grimly. "My dad always says his company follows environmental regulations, but these photos prove otherwise." Inspired by a sudden idea, Eli reached for his tablet, which Noah had retrieved from the wheelchair's waterproof compartment. "I need to send these to my dad, show him I'm safe and what I've discovered." The tablet powered on, operating on its own cellular connection. Eli quickly composed a message to his father with attached photos, but when he hit send, an error message appeared. Unknown to Eli, the message had been intercepted by Thomas Reed Pierce Technologies' head of security, who had been given administrative access to all the family's devices. Reed viewed the message and photos with alarm, immediately deleting them before Richard Pierce could see them. Sir Reed addressed Richard. "At the command center, we've detected activity on Eli's tablet coming from Westside Heights. We have a location." What Reed didn't share were the photos or Eli's message stating he was safe and being cared for. Instead, he added, "We should move in with full force. These kidnappers are clearly dangerous and getting desperate." At Riverdale Police Station, Detective Torres was systematically reviewing Noah Washington's background. His school records showed perfect attendance, stellar grades, and glowing recommendations from teachers, with the notable exception of Principal Hoffman, who had flagged Noah's exceptional test scores as suspicious. Mrs. Bennett, Noah's science teacher, had written, "Noah Washington is the most promising student I've encountered in 20 years of teaching. His understanding of complex scientific concepts and his compassion for others would make him an exceptional physician." Torres frowned as she noted how the news media had focused exclusively on the single disciplinary incident while ignoring Noah's academic achievements and community service. Her phone rang. It was one of her contacts at the hospital. "Detective Tanya Washington has been detained for questioning by officers Miller and Johnson. They're not following protocol." Torres grabbed her jacket, sensing the situation spiraling dangerously out of control. Outside the Washington apartment, the storm had begun to intensify again, the brief respite giving way to renewed rainfall as the second band of the hurricane-strength system moved over Riverdale. Noah, having successfully obtained fever medication from the sympathetic convenience store owner who had refused payment, was carefully making his way back home when he noticed increased police and security activity surrounding his apartment building. His heart sank as he realized they had somehow traced Eli's location. From his hiding place behind a dumpster, Noah watched as Reed directed his security team to prepare for entry. "Remember, the Washington kid is considered dangerous. We go in fast and secure the Pierce boy. Anyone gets in your way, deal with them." Noah's mind raced as he watched armed security personnel position themselves around his apartment building. How had they found Eli so quickly? He briefly considered surrendering himself to draw attention away from the apartment, but that would leave both Eli and Lily vulnerable. Crouching lower behind the dumpster, Noah spotted a familiar figure slipping away from the group, Tyrell, his supposed friend. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Tyrell had betrayed him, likely tempted by the $2 million reward. Inside the apartment, Eli was showing Lily more photos on his camera when he overheard a neighbor in the hallway speaking urgently on a cell phone. "Yes, they're in apartment 312. The Washington boy brought him in last night. Yes, I'm sure it's the Pierce kid. How soon will the reward be processed?" Eli's eyes widened in alarm. He quickly shut off his tablet and whispered to Lily, "Someone just reported us. They're coming." Despite his weakened condition, Eli maneuvered his way to the window using a broomstick as a makeshift crutch. Through the rain-streaked glass, he could see security personnel in tactical gear surrounding the building. "Mrs. Rodriguez," he called urgently, "we need to hide. Now." The retired nurse hurried in from the kitchen, assessed the situation with one glance out the window, and immediately began gathering essentials. "There's a maintenance access in the utility room that connects to the service tunnels beneath the complex," she explained, helping Lily to her feet. "My late husband was the building superintendent. Few people know about it. With remarkable efficiency for her 70 years, Mrs. Rodriguez led the children to a small utility room off the kitchen. She moved aside a stack of storage containers, revealing a small access hatch. These tunnels were built during the flood control projects in the 1970s before the city abandoned infrastructure improvements in Westside. As she helped the weakened children into the narrow passage, a loud banging came from the apartment door. "Police, open up." Eli descended into the dimly lit tunnel first, with Mrs. Rodriguez carefully lowering Lily down to him despite her arthritic hands. "I'll delay them," she whispered. "Follow the blue pipes. They lead to the community center. My sister Rosa is the administrator there. Tell her Carmela sent you." The tunnel was damp and musty, illuminated only by emergency bulbs placed at distant intervals. Eli supported Lily as best he could, both children moving slowly through the narrow passage. "I hope Noah doesn't go back to the apartment." Lily worried, her breath coming in labored gasps. "He's smart," Eli reassured her. "He'll figure it out." Above ground, Noah had circled back through alleyways to approach the building from the rear, planning to enter through the service entrance. As he turned the final corner, he nearly collided with a tall female figure hurrying in the same direction. They both jumped back in alarm before recognition dawned. Emma, Noah exclaimed in shock, identifying Eli's older sister despite never having met her in person. Her photos had appeared in news coverage about the Pierce family. "You're Noah Washington," she replied, neither calling for help nor running away. Instead, she reached into her jacket and pulled out a zippered case, "Eli's medication, and antibiotics that should work for your sister, too." Noah stared in confusion. "How did you monitor Eli's cloud photo uploads?" "I saw the pictures he took in the park, including selfies with you after you rescued him. I know you didn't kidnap my brother." Emma glanced nervously over her shoulder. "Reed's men are searching your apartment now." "Where's Eli? I don't know. I've been out getting medicine for my sister." Noah studied Emma's face, looking for any sign of deception. "Why are you helping us?" Emma's expression hardened. "Because my father's corporation has been poisoning your neighborhood for years. Eli's been documenting it. Reed intercepted Eli's message to our father. That's how they traced his tablet." A crash and shouting from the direction of the apartment building interrupted them. "We need to go," Emma insisted. "I know somewhere safe." She led Noah through a maze of service alleys to an abandoned boathouse at the edge of the Crescent River, half hidden by overgrown vegetation. This belonged to our family's former groundskeeper, Mr. Jenkins. He was fired when he complained about the chemical dumping. No one remembers this place exists except me. The boathouse was surprisingly dry inside, elevated just enough to have escaped the worst of the flooding. Emma quickly established a small camp, setting up battery-powered lanterns and laying out supplies she had brought in a waterproof backpack. "Dad doesn't know I'm in Riverdale. I flew back from Switzerland as soon as I heard Eli was missing. Reed thinks I'm still in my hotel room." She handed Noah a protein bar and a bottle of water. Eli needs these medications twice daily for his muscular dystrophy. Without them, his respiratory muscles can weaken dangerously. Noah accepted the medications gratefully. Now we just need to find Eli and my sister. They must have escaped the apartment somehow. As if on cue, his phone vibrated with a text message from an unknown number, "Children safe at community center. Come through tunnels." Rosa. Noah showed Emma the message. "The maintenance tunnels Mrs. Rodriguez must have helped them escape." Emma nodded. "I know another entrance near here. Let's go." While Noah and Emma navigated the tunnel system from the riverside, Detective Torres was making a disturbing discovery while reviewing security camera footage from Crescent Park. The timestamp on the footage had been altered. The original recording showed Noah arriving to help Eli hours after the boy had been stranded in rising waters, contradicting the kidnapping narrative. Further investigation revealed emails between Reed and city officials discussing containment strategies for environmental violations, with specific mention of keeping Westside residents from interfering with corporate interests. Torres downloaded the evidence to a secure drive and attempted to contact her captain, only to find herself suddenly assigned to flood duty and ordered to the opposite side of the city. Recognizing the deliberate sidelining, Torres instead contacted the FBI field office in the neighboring city with concerns about corporate corruption and civil rights violations. At the community center, Rosa Rodriguez had established a makeshift medical station in a storage room away from the main shelter area where other Westside residents had gathered. Eli and Lily rested on cots, both showing signs of improvement after receiving basic medical care. "Your brother will be here soon," Rosa assured Lily, checking her temperature. "Your fever is starting to respond to the medication." Eli, though still weak, had been documenting everything with his camera. "People need to see how Westside is being treated during this emergency," he explained to Rosa. "The main shelter has barely any supplies, while the downtown evacuation centers have hot meals and medical teams." In the tunnels, Noah and Emma made steady progress toward the community center until a disturbing sound echoed through the passage, voices and flashlight beams from a side tunnel. "They're searching the tunnels," Emma whispered. "Reed must have found out about them." They increased their pace, Emma supporting Noah, who was nearing exhaustion after 24 hours without sleep. When they finally reached the community center access point, Rosa was waiting to help them through. "Hurry," she urged. "Pierce's security teams have surrounded the building. They're demanding to search every room." The reunion between Noah and Lily was brief but emotional, brother and sister clinging to each other in relief. Eli embraced Emma with equal fervor. "You came back from Switzerland. Does Dad know?" Emma shook her head. "Dad's being manipulated by Reed. He doesn't know about the environmental violations or that I have evidence linking Pierce Technologies to the increased flooding in Westside." She turned to Noah. "Reed is controlling all information reaching my father. That's why the manhunt has become so aggressive." Noah sat heavily on an empty cot, the weight of the situation crushing down on him. "My mom's been detained for questioning. My face is all over the news as a kidnapper. Even if we clear this up, my life is ruined." Eli wheeled himself closer, having been provided with a standard wheelchair from the center's medical supplies. "Not if we expose the truth. My camera has evidence that could change everything." The momentary sense of safety was shattered by the sound of splintering wood from the direction of the center's rear entrance. "They've found us," Rosa said grimly, peering through a crack in the door. Outside, they could hear Reed's voice. "Search every room. The Pierce boy is in here, somewhere, along with the kidnapper." Emma made a quick decision, capturing video of both children on her phone, as Eli explained what really happened, including Noah's rescue. She sent the video to multiple news outlets and social media platforms with the caption, "The truth about Eli Pierce's kidnapping. Share before this is suppressed." As heavy footsteps approached their hiding place, Emma faced the group with determination. "I have a plan, but we need to split up. Noah, take Eli's medication and camera. Get to Detective Torres at the East Precinct. She's investigating the environmental crimes. Eli and Lily will come with me through the volunteer entrance." Rosa, create a distraction. Noah hesitated, reluctant to separate from Lily again. "Trust me," Emma insisted. "It's their only chance." As Rosa moved to create a commotion in the main shelter area, Noah hugged his sister tightly. "Be brave, Lilypad. This will all be over soon." With Eli's precious camera and medication secure in his backpack, Noah slipped out through a maintenance shaft as Reed's men breached the storage room door, finding only Emma standing protectively in front of the two younger children. Emma Pierce Reed faltered momentarily, his plan complicated by the unexpected presence of his employer's daughter. "Step aside. We're here for your brother and to apprehend a dangerous kidnapper." Emma stood her ground. "The only danger here is you, Reed. I've already sent evidence of your corruption to every major news outlet in the country. Have you ever witnessed someone stand up against powerful forces to protect those who can't protect themselves? Comment number 1. If you believe Emma's courageous stand will make a difference. Or number 2, if you think the wealth and influence of Pierce Technologies will prevail. Like and subscribe to find out what happens in the dramatic conclusion of our story. Will Noah make it to Detective Torres with the evidence? Can Emma protect the children from Reed's security forces? The storm outside may be weakening, but the storm of justice brewing in Riverdale is just beginning to gather strength. Reed's face contorted with barely controlled rage as he processed Emma's words. "You have no idea what you're interfering with," he snarled, stepping closer. "Your father built an empire that employs thousands. Everything I've done has been to protect that legacy." Behind Reed, 6 security personnel in tactical gear blocked the exit. Emma stood firm, positioning herself between the men and the children. By poisoning an entire community, by framing an innocent teenager. That's not protection, that's corruption. Eli wheeled himself forward to stand beside his sister. "I've documented everything, Reed. The illegal chemical dumping, the environmental violations, the deliberate neglect of Westside's infrastructure." His voice, though young, carried a conviction that momentarily silenced the room. Reed's hand moved toward his sidearm, a motion not missed by Emma. "Careful, Reed. Threatening the children of your employer while being recorded isn't a good career move." She subtly angled her phone, which was indeed still recording. Reed hesitated, then motioned to his men. "Secure the Pierce children for transport back to the estate. Detain the Washington girl for questioning." As the men moved forward, the overhead sprinkler system suddenly activated, drenching everyone in the room. In the momentary confusion, Rosa Rodriguez appeared at a side door previously hidden behind storage shelves. "This way," now she shouted over the alarm that had begun wailing throughout the building. Emma immediately pushed Eli's wheelchair toward the exit while Lily darted after them. 2 security men lunged forward but slipped on the wet floor, crashing into each other. Reed recovered quickly, racing after them, but Rosa slammed the heavy fire door shut in his face and engaged the emergency lock. "That won't hold them long," she warned, leading them down a narrow maintenance corridor. "The volunteer entrance is through the kitchen and out the loading dock." They could hear pounding and shouting from behind as Reed's men attempted to breach the door. The community center was in chaos. The sprinkler system had triggered a general evacuation, with shelter residents streaming toward the main exits. Rosa navigated through the confusion with practiced efficiency, guiding them through the industrial kitchen where volunteers had been preparing meals for flood victims. Out the back, she directed, pointing to a loading dock door that stood partially open. Outside, the rain had finally stopped, though the sky remained ominously dark. The loading dock overlooked a delivery area, now transformed into a muddy pond by the receding floodwaters. "There's no way out," Lily observed, her voice tinged with despair. Emma scanned the area frantically, before spotting an ancient maintenance boat tethered to a post at the edge of the flooded zone. There she pointed. "If we can reach that boat, we can navigate through the flood zone." Behind them, they heard Reed's voice getting closer as he and his men forced their way through the kitchen. Emma made a quick decision. "Get Eli and Lily to the boat. I'll create a diversion." Before Rosa could object, Emma ran back toward the kitchen door, deliberately knocking over a stack of metal serving trays with a tremendous crash. Rosa didn't waste the opportunity helping Eli from his wheelchair and supporting him as they made their way down the loading dock ramp, Lily close behind. The water was knee-deep at the bottom of the ramp, its murky surface concealing potential hazards. Rosa navigated carefully, helping the children toward the boat, while keeping a watchful eye on the loading dock door. Emma appeared moments later, sprinting toward them with Reed in close pursuit. "Start the engine!" she shouted. Rosa helped Eli into the boat first, then Lily, before struggling with the ancient outboard motor. Emma was only yards away when Reed caught up to her, grabbing her arm and spinning her around. "Enough games," he growled. "You're only making this worse for everyone." Emma's response was swift and unexpected, a self-defense move that sent Reed staggering backward into the muddy water. She broke free and ran the final distance to the boat, just as Rosa managed to start the sputtering engine. "Go, go," Emma urged, climbing aboard as Reed regained his footing. The boat pulled away from the shore as Reed's men emerged from the building, weapons drawn. "Stop or we'll fire," Reed shouted. But even he wasn't prepared to risk shooting at his employer's children. The boat disappeared around a bend in the flooded street, leaving Reed and his security team stranded and furious. "All units converge on the East Channel," Reed barked into his radio. "They're heading for the drainage system. Nothing gets through to the river." The old maintenance boat struggled against debris-filled waters, its engine protesting the strain. Rosa navigated with the skill of someone intimately familiar with Westside's layout, taking them through flooded side streets that would be unknown to Reed's teams. "Where are we going?" Lily asked, huddled beside Eli under a tarp Emma had found in the boat. "We need to reach the East Precinct to find Detective Torres," Emma explained. "But Reed will have teams watching all the main routes." Rosa pointed toward a large concrete tunnel opening visible ahead, where floodwater was draining into a massive pipe. The storm drainage system. These old tunnels run beneath all of Riverdale, including under Hillcrest Estates and right past the Pierce Technologies headquarters. Emma looked skeptical. "Is it safer than staying in Reed's crosshairs?" Rosa replied grimly, steering the boat toward the tunnel entrance. The drainage tunnel was cavernous, designed to handle massive water volumes during flood events. Their small boat seemed insignificant in the vast concrete passage, illuminated only by emergency lights spaced at 100-foot intervals. The sound of the motor echoed ominously, the noise amplified by the tunnel's acoustics. "We need to kill the engine." And drift, Rosa advised, cutting power. "Sound carries too far in here." They floated silently through the massive infrastructure beneath Riverdale, the current carrying them steadily toward the central junction where multiple drainage systems converged. Emma checked her phone. No signal this far underground, but the video she'd sent before their escape had been successfully delivered. "Once we get this evidence to Detective Torres, Reed won't be able to maintain the kidnapping story," she said confidently. Beside her, Eli suddenly gasped, his breathing becoming labored. "Eli, what's wrong?" Emma knelt beside her brother in alarm. "Can't breathe." Properly, he managed between ragged breaths. "Missed medication." The stress and exertion had accelerated his symptoms, his weakened respiratory muscles struggling to maintain normal function. Emma looked to Rosa in desperation. "He needs his medication. Noah has it." Rosa, who had spent decades as a nurse before retirement, quickly assessed Eli's condition. "His diaphragm is weakening. We need to support his breathing until we can get his medication." She positioned Eli, carefully instructing him on breathing techniques to maximize oxygen efficiency. "Emma, check the emergency kit under the steering column. There might be an inhaler or bronchodilator." The boat drifted into a junction chamber where 5 massive tunnels converged into a churning whirlpool of debris-filled water. Rosa struggled to steer their powerless craft toward the eastern tunnel that would take them toward the police precinct. "We need the motor now," she decided, reaching for the starter cord. The engine sputtered but failed to catch. Above them, through a storm drain grate in the chamber's ceiling, they could hear the sounds of vehicles and shouted orders. "Reed's men," Emma whispered. "They're searching above ground." Rosa tried the engine again with the same result. Their boat began to spin in the circular current, drawn inexorably toward the central whirlpool. Lily spotted a maintenance platform along the wall of the eastern tunnel. There, she pointed. "If we can reach that platform, we can get out through the access ladder." Emma grabbed an emergency paddle and fought against the current, trying to maneuver their increasingly unstable craft toward the platform. With each stroke, they drew slightly closer, but Eli's condition was deteriorating rapidly. One more big push Rosa encouraged as they approached the platform. Emma summoned her remaining strength for a powerful stroke that brought them alongside the concrete ledge. Rosa helped Lily climb onto the platform first, then together they carefully lifted Eli from the boat. As Emma prepared to climb out herself, the current suddenly strengthened, pulling the boat away from the platform with Rosa still aboard. Rosa Lily cried out as the boat spun back toward the central whirlpool. "Climb the ladder, get Eli to safety," Rosa called back, fighting for control of the vessel. "I'll find another way out." The boat disappeared into a different tunnel before they could respond, leaving Emma alone with the two younger children on the narrow maintenance platform. "We need to keep moving," she decided, examining the access ladder that led upward to what appeared to be a street-level maintenance hatch. "Eli, can you hold on to my back?" The boy nodded weakly, summoning his remaining strength as Emma helped him position himself piggyback style. "Hold tight. Okay, Lily, you go first, so you can help pull Eli up at the top." The climb was arduous, the metal rungs slippery with moisture and age. Lily led the way, her small form moving with surprising agility despite her recent illness. Emma followed, bearing Eli's weight and fighting her own exhaustion. When they finally reached the top, Lily pushed against the heavy metal cover, straining with all her might until it shifted slightly. Through the narrow opening, a familiar logo became visible on a nearby building. "Pierce Technologies," Emma whispered in surprise. "The drainage system led us right to headquarters." The realization sparked an idea. "This is perfect. Dad's security systems will recognize Eli and me. We can access the building and use the secure elevator to reach his office." With renewed determination, Lily pushed harder on the hatch cover, creating an opening just wide enough for them to squeeze through. They emerged in an ornamental garden on the perimeter of the Pierce Technologies campus, the massive glass and steel headquarters building looming before them. Emma surveyed their surroundings, noting the security cameras positioned throughout the garden. "Don't try to hide," she instructed the children. "Walk normally toward the executive entrance. The system will recognize Eli and me as authorized persons." Despite his worsening condition, Eli understood the plan and nodded weakly. They approached the sleek glass doors of the executive entrance, where a biometric scanner glowed blue beside the handle. Emma placed her palm against it, and after a moment's hesitation, the light turned green with a soft chime. Inside the vast atrium stood eerily empty, the building evacuated during the flood emergency except for essential security personnel. Emma guided them directly toward the private elevator reserved for Richard Pierce and his family. "Dad's holding a press conference about Eli's kidnapping," she explained, pressing her palm to another scanner. "It's happening in the main auditorium right now." The elevator doors slid open, silently admitting them to the luxuriously appointed cabin. "Once Dad sees Eli, once he hears the truth from us, directly he'll have to stop this manhunt." Emma seemed to be trying to convince herself as much as the others. Lily looked skeptical. "Will he believe you? About Noah and the environmental stuff?" Emma's expression hardened as she pressed the button for the auditorium level. "He'll have to. We have proof." The elevator ascended smoothly, its soft hum, the only sound as Eli's breathing became increasingly labored. Emma supported her brother, fear evident in her eyes as she watched him struggle for each breath. "Just a little longer, Eli. We're almost there." Across the city, Noah had successfully navigated the flooded streets to reach the East Precinct, only to find Detective Torres absent. She was reassigned to flood duty, the desk sergeant informed him unsympathetically. "Turn yourself in, son. Make this easier on everyone." Noah backed away from the desk, clutching Eli's camera and medication bag. His options were dwindling rapidly when his phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. "Meet me at the service entrance of Pierce Technologies immediately. Torres." Suspicious but desperate, Noah made his way through the receding floodwaters toward the corporate campus, his mind racing with possibilities and pitfalls. When he arrived at the service entrance, Detective Torres was waiting her unmarked car idling nearby. "Washington," she acknowledged with a nod. "I received some interesting footage from Emma Pierce. Seems you're a hero, not a kidnapper." Noah approached cautiously. I have evidence of environmental violations. And Eli's medication. He needs it urgently. Torres gestured toward the building. Richard Pierce is holding a press conference right now about his son's kidnapping. Your mother has been brought there to make a public plea for you to surrender. The detective's expression was grim. Reed's men are searching for you throughout the city. This ends now, but we do it my way. Inside the Pierce Technologies auditorium, Richard Pierce stood at a podium before dozens of reporters, his face a mask of paternal concern carefully crafted for the cameras. It has been 24 hours since my son was taken, he stated, his voice breaking slightly for effect. I am increasing the reward to $5 million for information leading to his safe return. Behind him, a massive screen displayed Eli's school portrait alongside an artificially darkened and menacing image of Noah Washington. At the side of the stage, Tanya Washington stood flanked by police officers, her face drawn with worry and lack of sleep. Richard gestured toward her. Even the kidnapper's own mother has come forward to help us resolve this situation peacefully. The elevator doors at the rear of the auditorium slid open silently as Richard continued his speech. Emma emerged first, supporting Eli, whose condition had deteriorated to a critical state. Lily followed, her young face set with determination beyond her years. As they moved down the center aisle toward the stage, heads began to turn, murmurs rippling through the assembled press corps. Richard, focused on his teleprompter, remained unaware until a reporter stood up pointing. "Mr. Pierce." Your son Richard turned, his prepared speech forgotten, as he saw Eli being half-carried down the aisle by Emma. Eli, Emma. His surprise appeared genuine as he rushed from the podium toward his children. Security personnel converged from all directions, including Reed, who had just entered through a side door. "Secure the Washington girl," Reed ordered, pointing at Lily. "She's an accomplice." Chaos erupted in the auditorium as cameras swiveled to capture the unfolding drama, reporters shouting questions and security personnel, creating a perimeter around the Pierce family. Through it all, Eli's labored breathing became increasingly desperate as he fought to speak. "Dad," he managed weakly. "Noah saved me." Reed lied. Richard knelt beside his son, genuine concern replacing his public persona. "Where's your medication? What happened to your wheelchair?" Before Eli could respond, Reed intervened. "Sir, we need to get Eli to medical immediately. These children have been traumatized by their ordeal. Questions can wait." Emma stood her ground as Reed attempted to separate her from Eli. "Don't listen to him, Dad." Reed intercepted Eli's messages to you. "He's been hiding the truth." The standoff intensified as Tanya Washington broke free from the officers holding her, rushing toward Lily. "My daughter, let me through." The reunited mother and daughter clung to each other as security personnel surrounded them, uncertain how to proceed without explicit orders. At that precise moment, the auditorium doors burst open again. Noah Washington entered, flanked by Detective Torres. In his hands he held Eli's medication and the camera containing the damning environmental evidence. Reed immediately drew his weapon. "Freeze, don't move." Detective Torres calmly displayed her badge. "Lower your weapon, Reed. This is now a federal investigation." Noah's eyes locked with his mother's across the chaotic room, relief and love passing between them in that silent exchange. Then his focus shifted to Eli, whose breathing had become alarmingly shallow. "He needs his medication now," Noah stated firmly, already moving toward the boy despite Reed's drawn weapon. What happened next would be replayed on news channels worldwide and shared millions of times on social media. Noah Washington, despite being labeled a dangerous kidnapper, despite facing armed security, walked calmly toward Eli Pierce with life-saving medication in hand, his only concern the well-being of the boy he had rescued from the storm. The auditorium fell into a tense silence as Noah approached Eli, medication in hand. Reed's weapon remained trained on Noah's back, his finger hovering near the trigger. "Sir, give the order," Reed urged Richard Pierce. "This is the kidnapper." Richard Pierce stood frozen, witnessing the gentle care with which Noah administered his son's medication, seeing the trust in Eli's eyes as he accepted Noah's help. The contrast between this reality and the dangerous criminal Reed had described was stark and undeniable. "Lower your weapon," Reed Richard finally ordered, his voice carrying unexpected authority. "Now." Reed hesitated, conflict evident on his face. "Sir, you don't understand what's at stake here. This boy has evidence that could—" "I said, lower your weapon," Richard repeated, louder this time. Reluctantly, Reed complied as Detective Torres moved closer, hand on her own holstered sidearm. "Thomas Reed, you're under investigation for obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and civil rights violations," she announced. "Federal agents are currently executing search warrants at your residence and office." The medication began to take effect, Eli's breathing gradually becoming less labored. Noah remained beside him, monitoring his condition with the expertise of someone who had studied medical textbooks extensively. Cameras captured every moment of this unexpected scene, the supposed kidnapper caring for his alleged victim while surrounded by security personnel and police. Richard Pierce knelt beside his son, emotion cracking through his carefully maintained public image. "Eli, are you all right?" "What happened?" Eli's strength, returning to his voice, looked directly at his father. "Noah saved my life, Dad. My wheelchair malfunctioned in the park during the storm. I was stuck in rising water for hours. 2 of our security guards walked right past me. They didn't even stop when I called for help." The revelation sent murmurs through the crowd of reporters. Eli continued, each word stronger than the last. "Noah carried me through the flood to safety when no one else would help. He and his family took care of me even though they had nothing." Richard's face reflected genuine shock as he turned to Noah. "Is this true?" Before Noah could respond, Emma stepped forward, holding up her phone. "I have proof, Dad, not just of Noah's rescue, but of what Reed and Pierce Technologies have been doing to Westside Heights." She played a video showing the security footage timestamp manipulation, followed by evidence of chemical dumping into the Crescent River. "Reed has been running a cover-up operation for years with your environmental compliance team. The illegal dumping is why Westside floods so severely while Hillcrest remains protected." Richard's expression hardened as he turned to Reed. "Explain yourself." Reed straightened his posture, switching tactics. "Everything I've done has been to protect Pierce Technologies and your family, sir. These compliance issues would have cost the company billions in fines and remediation. As for the Washington boy, his background made him the perfect scapegoat. Who would believe a black teenager from Westside over us?" The naked prejudice in Reed's statement hung in the air, captured by dozens of cameras and divergent microphones. Tanya Washington stepped forward, standing protectively near Noah. "My son has never been in trouble a day in his life. He maintains a perfect grade point average despite attending an underfunded school. He works part-time to help our family while studying to become a doctor." Her voice trembled not with fear, but with righteous anger. "You were willing to destroy his life because of where we live and the color of our skin." Richard Pierce appeared genuinely shaken, looking between Reed and the Washington family as the full implications of what had transpired became clear. He turned to the assembled press, then back to his security chief. "Reed, you're fired. Effective immediately." Reed's face contorted with disbelief. "You can't be serious. After everything I've done to protect this company, you're under arrest." Detective Torres interrupted, producing handcuffs. "Turn around slowly and place your hands behind your back." As Torres began reading Reed his rights, Richard Pierce approached Noah and Tanya Washington. "I owe you an apology," he began, his voice uncharacteristically humble. "What my son told me. What you did." Noah stood tall despite his exhaustion, meeting Richard's gaze directly. "I didn't do anything special, Mr. Pierce. Anyone would have helped a child in danger." "No," Richard contradicted softly. "They wouldn't. My own security team didn't." He glanced back at Eli, now sitting up with Emma's support. "You saved my son's life at great risk to your own." Tanya placed a protective arm around Noah's shoulders. "My son deserves more than an apology. His reputation has been destroyed. His future has been jeopardized. Our home is probably still underwater." Her voice carried the weight of years of injustice, not just the events of the past 24 hours. Richard nodded slowly. "You're right, of course. I'll make this right, whatever it takes." His words sounded sincere, but Noah remained skeptical. Years of experiencing broken promises from authorities and institutions had taught him caution. "Mr. Probert Pierce," he said quietly, "what matters now is addressing the environmental damage your company has caused to our neighborhood. The illegal dumping needs to stop, and Westside needs proper flood protection." The directness of Noah's response, prioritizing his community over personal gain, seemed to surprise Richard. Before he could respond, Eli wheeled himself forward, having been provided a spare wheelchair kept at headquarters for his use during visits. "Dad, I have something to show you." He held out his camera. "I've been documenting the environmental violations for months. The chemicals being dumped into the river have contaminated the groundwater in Westside. It's why Lily was so sick. Their tap water isn't safe." Richard took the camera, scrolling through the damning images his son had captured. His expression shifted from disbelief to shame to resolution. "How long have you known about this, Eli?" "Since last summer, when Emma took me exploring along the river. We found dead fish and strange-colored water near the discharge pipes. I started researching and photographing evidence." Eli glanced at Noah. "That's why I was in the park during the storm, trying to document how the dumping affected flood patterns." The press corps, sensing the unfolding of an even bigger story than a kidnapping, pressed closer, cameras and microphones capturing every word. Richard Pierce, accustomed to controlling narratives and managing public perception, found himself in an unprecedented position, exposed and accountable in real time. He straightened his posture, CEO instincts kicking in. "I'll be making a full statement after I've had time to investigate these allegations thoroughly. For now, I want to correct the record. Noah Washington is not a kidnapper, but a hero who saved my son's life at great personal risk." The announcement sent reporters into a frenzy of questions, but Richard held up his hand. "That's all for now. My priority is my son's health and making things right with the Washington family." As security began ushering reporters from the auditorium, Richard turned back to Noah and Tanya. "Please come to my office. We have much to discuss." The group moved toward the private elevator, the Pierce family, the Washingtons, and Detective Torres, who maintained a watchful presence. As they ascended to the executive floor, an uncomfortable silence settled between the two families. Decades of societal division, not easily bridged by a single act of heroism. Richard's office occupied the entire top floor of Pierce Technologies' headquarters, offering panoramic views of Riverdale through floor-to-ceiling windows. From this height, the stark contrast between the recovering downtown area and the still-flooded Westside Heights was unmistakable, a physical manifestation of the inequality that defined the city. "Please sit," Richard offered, gesturing to a seating area while ordering refreshments for the exhausted group. Once everyone was settled, he addressed Tanya directly. "Mrs. Washington, I understand your home is likely damaged by flooding. I'll arrange immediate accommodation for your family at the Riverdale Grand Hotel until repairs can be completed." Tanya exchanged glances with Noah. "That's generous, Mr. Pierce. But what about our neighbors? The entire Westside community is suffering, not just us." Her response appeared to catch Richard off guard. Before he could respond, Emma interjected. "Dad, this isn't about one family. Pierce Technologies has been poisoning Westside for years, while actively blocking infrastructure improvements that would have prevented this level of flooding." Richard sighed heavily, removing his designer glasses and rubbing the bridge of his nose. "I've clearly been insulated from significant aspects of my company's operations. That ends today." He turned to Detective Torres. "I'll cooperate fully with your investigation, Detective. All company records will be made available." Torres nodded, though her expression remained professionally neutral. "The Environmental Crimes Division and FBI will be in contact shortly. I suggest retaining counsel, Mr. Pierce." An uncomfortable silence followed, broken by Eli's voice. "Dad, actions matter more than words right now. Noah and his family need immediate help, and so does their community." The simple moral clarity of his son's statement seemed to cut through Richard's corporate thinking. "You're right, of course." He pressed a button on his desk. "Janet, contact the Pierce Foundation immediately. I want emergency relief activated for Westside Heights. Temporary housing, medical assistance, food distribution, everything." and arrange for contractors to begin pumping operations in the most affected areas. He turned back to the group. It's a start, at least. Noah, who had remained largely silent, finally spoke. Mr. Pierce, why did you believe I would kidnap your son without questioning the evidence? What made that story so easy to accept? The directness of the question created a palpable tension in the room. Richard hesitated, uncomfortable with the implicit accusation of racial bias. I trusted my security team's assessment, he began, but Emma interrupted. Dad, be honest. If Eli had been found with a white teenager from Hillcrest, would your first assumption have been kidnapping? The challenge from his own daughter left Richard momentarily speechless. I'd like to think I would have asked more questions regardless of who was involved. His answer sounded hollow even to his own ears. Tanya Washington leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. Mr. Pierce, my son, has faced these assumptions his entire life. Every achievement questioned, every action viewed with suspicion. What happened these past 24 hours isn't just about your company's environmental violations or Reed's manipulation. It's about the deeper problem of how you see people like us. Her words hung in the air, undeniable in their truth. Richard Pierce, accustomed to wielding power and influence, found himself confronted with a reality his wealth had previously insulated him from. For perhaps the first time in his adult life, he had no prepared response, no corporate strategy to deploy. You're right, he finally admitted, the simple acknowledgement more powerful than any elaborate apology. And I have no excuse. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Rosa Rodriguez, escorted by security personnel who had found her emerging from another drainage exit near headquarters. Her presence completed the unlikely circle of individuals brought together by the storm, people from vastly different backgrounds whose lives had become unexpectedly intertwined. As they shared their separate experiences of the past 24 hours, filling in the gaps in each other's understanding, something remarkable began to happen. The rigid social barriers that had divided them started to soften, not disappearing entirely, but becoming permeable enough for genuine human connection to form. In that moment, amidst the aftermath of crisis, the foundations were laid for a transformation that would extend far beyond the individual's present, a transformation that would eventually reach the divided city of Riverdale itself. 1 year later, Noah Washington stood at the podium in Riverdale Community College's main auditorium, looking out over a packed audience that represented every neighborhood in the city. The occasion was the inaugural Riverdale Unity Scholarship Ceremony, and as the first recipient, Noah had been asked to deliver the keynote address. Behind him sat a distinguished group, including his mother Tanya, now Director of Community Outreach at Riverdale Memorial Hospital, his sister Lily, whose science project on water quality had recently won the state championship, Richard Pierce, who had undergone a remarkable personal transformation over the past year, Emma Pierce, now leading Pierce Technologies' Environmental Remediation Division, and Eli Pierce, whose friendship with Noah had become the symbol of Riverdale's ongoing healing process. A year ago, Noah began his voice confident yet humble. A historic storm revealed truths that had been hidden beneath the surface of our city for generations. When I found Eli Pierce struggling in floodwaters that night, I didn't see the son of a billionaire. I saw a person who needed help. What followed taught all of us valuable lessons about perception, prejudice, and the power of seeing each other's humanity. The audience listened in rapt attention as Noah continued recounting how the crisis had exposed not just environmental crimes, but the deeper social divisions that had plagued Riverdale for decades. He described the transformation that had occurred in the months since, not a perfect resolution, but genuine progress built on accountability and recognition of shared humanity. The changes in Riverdale had been both symbolic and substantive. Pierce Technologies had pleaded guilty to environmental violations, paying a record fine and committing to a comprehensive cleanup of the Crescent River watershed. Richard Pierce had stepped down as CEO to focus on the Pierce Foundation, which now directed significant resources toward educational equity, environmental justice, and infrastructure improvements in historically neglected neighborhoods. The physical wall separating Hillcrest Estates from Westside Heights had been ceremonially demolished, replaced by Harmony Park, a shared green space designed with input from residents of both communities. Noah spoke of Thomas Reed's conviction on multiple charges, including evidence tampering and civil rights violations, and the sweeping reforms implemented in the Riverdale Police Department under the leadership of newly promoted Chief Torres. He acknowledged Principal Hoffman's resignation following an investigation into discriminatory practices at Westside High and the school's subsequent renaissance under Principal Bennett, the former science teacher who had always believed in Noah's potential. "The scholarship I receive today will help me pursue my dream of becoming a doctor," Noah continued, "but the true transformation has been in our community's recognition that talent, dignity, and worth exist in every neighborhood regardless of wealth or racial makeup." As Noah concluded his speech, he invited Eli and Lily to join him at the podium. The three young people, black, white, disabled, and able-bodied from vastly different economic backgrounds, stood together as living testament to the possibility of authentic connection across society's dividing lines. "The storm that nearly destroyed our city ultimately saved it by washing away the illusions that kept us separated," Noah stated as the audience rose in a standing ovation. At the reception following the ceremony, Richard Pierce approached Tanya Washington with uncharacteristic hesitancy. "Your son continues to impress me, Tanya. His choice to attend community college before medical school so he can remain close to his community speaks volumes about his character." Tanya nodded, pride evident in her expression. "Noah understands that true change requires presence and commitment. He wants to be part of Riverdale's continued healing." Nearby, Emma and Detective, now Chief Torres, discussed the progress of ongoing investigations into corporate environmental crimes throughout the region. "The Pierce Technologies case has become a template for holding corporations accountable," Torres explained. "The EPA is using our evidence to pursue similar violations in 3 other states." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "The corporate culture is changing too, though, more slowly than I'd like. Having board representation from affected communities has made a significant difference in how we approach environmental decisions." Across the room, Mrs. Rodriguez, who had become something of a local celebrity for her role in the children's escape, was surrounded by admirers from both Westside and Hillcrest. Her sister Rosa had been appointed director of the newly established Riverdale Emergency Preparedness Office, ensuring all neighborhoods would receive equal protection in future crises. The most remarkable relationship to emerge from the events of the storm was between Noah and Eli. Despite their age difference and vastly different backgrounds, they had formed a bond that transcended conventional friendship. Eli's health had improved significantly under a new treatment protocol that Noah had actually helped research as part of a special project with Riverdale Medical Center. In turn, Eli had introduced Noah to photography, giving him his first professional camera to document the ongoing transformation of their city. Noah Eli called, wheeling himself through the crowd with improved strength in his arms. "Dad's ready to announce the community center funding if you want to be there." The new Westside Community Medical Clinic, which would provide free health care to underserved residents, had been Noah's proposal, a project he would continue to be involved with throughout his medical education. As the crowd gathered for the announcement, Richard Pierce stepped forward, a changed man from the corporate titan who had once viewed Westside Heights as nothing more than a tax burden on the city. "This facility represents our commitment to addressing healthcare disparities in Riverdale." He began, acknowledging Noah's central role in its conception. "It also serves as a reminder that true wealth lies not in corporate profits, but in the well-being of an entire community." After the ceremony, Noah walked with his mother and sister along the newly constructed Riverside path that connected Westside Heights directly to downtown for the first time in the city's history. The setting sun cast a golden light over the Crescent River, now in the early stages of ecological recovery following the cessation of chemical dumping and implementation of restoration efforts. "Did you ever imagine things could change this much in a year?" Lily asked, skipping ahead with the boundless energy of youth. Tanya squeezed Noah's hand. "Your father would be so proud of you," she said softly, referring to the husband and father they had lost to inadequate health care access 5 years earlier. a personal tragedy that had fueled Noah's determination to become a Blankesteins doctor. I hope so. Mom Noah replied, watching as children from Westside and Hillcrest played together at the new Riverside Park, oblivious to the social barriers that had once seemed impenetrable to their parents. I think he would be prouder of Riverdale, though. We still have a long way to go, but at least we're finally walking the path together. As darkness fell, the newly installed Riverside lights illuminated the path ahead, a symbolic reminder that the journey toward true equality and justice required vigilance, commitment, and the courage to see beyond superficial differences, too. The common humanity that united them all. In a nearby tree, a bird began to sing, nature's own testament to the healing that was possible when humans chose cooperation over division, compassion over prejudice, and hope over fear. The storm had indeed revealed the worst in their city, but it had also created space for the best to emerge, proving that even the most entrenched systems of inequality could be transformed when enough people refused to accept them as inevitable. What do you think about Noah and Eli's story? Could a crisis like this storm bring about real change in communities divided by race and wealth in your area? Comment below with your thoughts if this story of courage, justice, and transformation touched your heart. Please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories that challenge us to see beyond our differences. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that positive change is possible even in the most divided communities. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the storm to transformation. Until next time, remember that sometimes our greatest growth comes through our most challenging storms. This story powerfully demonstrates how crisis can strip away societal facades and reveal our shared humanity. When Noah found Eli trapped in floodwaters, he didn't see a billionaire's son. He saw someone who needed help. His courage to act, despite the risks, illuminates how true character manifests when facing difficult choices. The racial prejudice Noah encountered, being instantly labeled a kidnapper rather than a hero, reflects how deeply ingrained biases can distort reality and perpetuate injustice. Meanwhile, the environmental neglect of Westside Heights exposes how systemic inequality often remains hidden until crisis forces confrontation. Through their unexpected connection, both families discovered that transformation begins with acknowledging uncomfortable truths. Richard Pierce learned that wealth and power had insulated him from seeing his own biases and his company's harmful impacts. The Washington family demonstrated that dignity and moral clarity persist even under oppression. Most importantly, the story teaches us that sustainable change requires both institutional accountability and personal relationships that bridge divides. When communities recognize their interconnectedness, that the suffering of one ultimately affects all, healing becomes possible. The demolished wall between neighborhoods symbolizes how physical and psychological barriers can fall when we prioritize justice and human connection over separation and prejudice. Has a moment of crisis ever revealed unexpected connections in your own life? Have you witnessed how prejudice can blind people to seeing acts of kindness and heroism? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of courage across racial and economic divides touched your heart, please hit that like button to help others find this message of hope and transformation. Subscribe to join our community dedicated to powerful stories that challenge our perspectives and inspire positive change. Don't forget to share this video with someone who might need a reminder that even in our divided world, individual acts of courage can spark meaningful transformation. Thank you for being part of this journey through Noah and Eli's story. May it inspire each of us to examine our own biases and find opportunities to build bridges across whatever divides exist in our communities. Remember, the most powerful changes often begin with a single compassionate choice during life's most challenging storms.